So there's a report from Life and Style magazine about George Clooney, that he's moving his family back here to the United States over fears the UK, where he's been living, at least part-time, is unsafe with too many terrorists and terror attacks. Now, Clooney, to some extent, has disputed that report. We'll talk about it in a second, but let me bring in American Islamic Forum for Democracy founder Zuhdi Jasser. And it started, Zuhdi, this conversation because Clooney's a big-time, he's an open borders guy, and it started this conversation about refugees and whether there's maybe some hypocrisy here. What do you say?
Well, Connell, you know, this is a great story because it really highlights the hypocrisy, the duality of the public life and the public vitriol of many in Hollywood in using Muslims in their partisan divide and identity politics, and then the realities in their private life when they realize that here's a guy and his family. He's married to a Amal Clooney, who've been very high profile. She's an Arab origin and a Muslim origin, and have found themselves moving to the United States because as a family they see themselves safer here, and they've been frightened by the number of attacks in the UK. And I think the deeper story here is, you know, one of the reasons I do the work I do, Connell, is I think there's nothing greater than the American narrative to counter the Islamist narrative of radicalization. Right. And here you have the Clooneys who have new children that they're going to be raising. I think they see America as the only bastion left in the world where they can raise their kids without this dual identity, where assimilation is not going to be a problem. And they, unfortunately, their public rhetoric has not matched what they're doing privately. It's
interesting. I mean, I said that the Clooneys are pushing back on this to some extent. The pushback is that they say that, well, we have two homes. One's in L.A., one is in the UK. I believe it's in the countryside over there outside of London somewhere. So they say that, well, we still have two homes. We still live in two places. They were not necessarily changing anything. But either way, as I said, it started this conversation. For people who don't know, what's the difference, do you think, between, you know, three different kind of regions? The United States, and Clooney's home is out in L.A., so you're there, you're raising children there. Continental Europe within the European Union, I guess you would include Ireland in that as well, and the UK now after Brexit. Will there be differences? I know the terrorist attacks that have happened recently in the UK have happened, but will there be differences, you think, in terms of the way people travel freely in those areas, and will Brexit have an effect on that?
Well, I think Westminster, Manchester, London Bridge has finally woken up a lot of the British community to their problem. Brexit was a sign that the population of UK had realized that they had lost their British identity to the EU, this sort of mixture of loss of national identity which unites their social cohesion against political Islam and the influx of ideologies that want to negate secular, liberal, democratic institutions. And now they're finally starting to grab hold of that, but they have a number of generations of loss of time to make up, and the influx of refugees and the sonic boom of cultural loss that's happening has made them really behind the eight ball on that,
not much tighter borders in the UK. It'll still be pretty much the same as it is in continental Europe, within the European Union. Is that your prediction? Nothing's changing.
Absolutely. Brexit can't fix that in 1 year. It's going to take a generation to fix that. America is not far behind, but we're insulated in some ways because of decreased huge numbers of refugees and because Americanism as an ideology of religious freedom and national identity in our Constitution is more protective against radical Islam. And I think folks like the Clooneys really recognize that. And unfortunately, we need cultural leaders like Clooney's, Amal Clooney, Ariana Grande to finally realize that they have large platforms to confront this multiculturalism loss of Western identity that we've completely been missing in action.
Well, even when, but whether George Clooney is thrown into this or other celebrities are, when they talk about it, sometimes they miss the fact that these people that are coming into these countries as immigrants or as migrants or whatever the case may be to these other European countries are not necessarily being treated equally. All right, I mean they're being put in neighborhoods where they're not given the opportunity to succeed. And for all this open border and the talk of open borders, some of these people have not assimilated or haven't done very well in many of those European countries.
And Connell, you've hit the nail on the head as far as the bigotry of low expectations of this regressive, not progressive, of the regressive left that use us Muslims for identity politics, and in the meantime live in their bubble of security and push them into segregated areas, not allowing them or giving them the tough love of pushing them towards assimilation of cultural identity and ideas, and instead allow this festering radicalization that they contribute to with their partisan politics. Meanwhile, their own kids and family are protected as they realize the realities privately that unfortunately they leave us reformers alone to vent for publicly.
Zuhdi Jasser, always a good discussion, and thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it. Such an important issue.